All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Putting the final touches here on the week 6 props. Let's go ahead and get into it. So looking at the 9 to 5 cheat sheet here, we're going to see that all these props, at least the quarterback props, I just don't really want to be putting too much time into. I feel like those are a little bit inconsistent. Now, do you expect Jimmy G and Joe Burrow to get a rushing attempt? Probably not. Now, Joe Burrow did look a little bit better, I guess, health-wise. That's not really something I want to bet on, though. It's like, all right, how shot up is his leg? How well is his body responding to that shot? I don't really want to bet on that because for the first 4 weeks, we saw him not really do too well under those circumstances. And obviously, he doesn't really want to be rushing the football unless he doesn't have to. So, I don't know. I don't want to touch that one. Cam Akers receiving yards, another one I don't want to touch. This Derrick Henry prop right here, we can see it's basically being valued as a push right now. PrizePicks went ahead and bumped it up to 2 receptions because while the average sportsbook line is pretty much saying it has a 57% chance to get over 1.5 receptions. I don't want to touch Mac Jones and Derek Carr. So the first very interesting one to me is going to be this one, the DeMarcado prop. And I find this one to be kind of fascinating. To me, I would have thought that the over would have been the better bet. This is kind of a sad situation for me because I think we could have bet the over on when the sportsbooks had those lines been out there. Now, this could be a situation where you do end up betting the over on Underdog, but we can see the average Vegas line would have this set at 9.1. The projection data has it set at 10.4. Underdog would have it set at 9, and PrizePicks has it set at 10.5. So it is the most aggressive of the projections out there. But I feel like this is right because, yes, Keontae Ingram could be back this week. Okay, that is going to be the worry, is that he could be back. And, there's stuff on Twitter saying that Ingram is listed as RB1 on the depth chart, which could be true. While James Conner is out, I kind of expect Ingram to eventually be the RB1 there. Will that matter in terms of fantasy scoring, in terms of like which one is going to be the higher scorer? I don't really think so. I think that could end up being a little bit of Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren type, where Jaylen Warren keeps outscoring Najee Harris, even though Najee Harris is, the RB1. DeMarcado is going to be the third down running back, it seems like. We know that the Cardinals have a pretty good run scheme, it would appear, because James Conner has done well. DeMarcado had some room to run there as well last week. So personally, I'm probably not touching that one. This could be one that I end up kicking myself for. I don't want to touch that one. The first one that I really like is actually going to be this one for Mostert for over 14.5 receiving yards. And part of the reason as to why I like this is because that role for him should at least be guaranteed. And I say that because I worry that Mostert might be the best option for them to put into that as a comma Devon Achane role, where they're doing a lot of ends arounds and stuff like that, reverses and stuff like that. So I kind of worry about that, where maybe his usage is a little bit off, but I do still think that if they're going to be throwing to the running back, it will most likely be him. Chris Brooks is more of a downhill between the tackles type runner, but he's a good blocker. And Ahmed he's just a solid backup running back to have on your roster. He's not like a world beater. And so I do worry that those two could actually end up being the quote unquote RB1 like Mostert had been, but Mostert might shift into the Achane role. But for the receiving prop, I don't think that's really going to matter. Now, the only worry that I have is that when we look at like DVP, we're going to see that Carolina is actually relatively decent at stopping passing yards to opposing running backs, but overall they're not good at guarding the running back position. So I do like it, especially with the sportsbook saying 16 should be the line, especially with the projection data really liking the over, and especially with Underdog feeling like it should be set at 15.5. That is going to be a really good one that we have out there. From there, do you want to roll with Kareem Hunt for under receiving yards, 6.5? You could. It's just tough with another backup quarterback in there. We don't exactly know how that game is going to flow, and I probably don't want to touch that. And in case you guys missed the news, Watson is out. PJ Walker is going to be starting in that game instead of DTR. And we saw how bad DTR was in that game. I kind of feel bad for him because a little bit more of a difficult matchup for his first rookie start. But yeah, that just seems like a situation I stay away from. On the flip side of that, we do see that Jerome Ford, this is another situation where I'm like, I kind of wish we could find a sports book that has actually given us these fantasy score lines so I could bet the over of 9. Now, Underdog's line is probably going to be one where I would want to bet the over here as well. Jerome Ford may not be playing a full allotment of snaps, but when he has played, he has looked good. And yes, the matchup is going to be more difficult going against San Francisco. I get that. we could see maybe I don't get, has your guys' screen been doing this when you go on desktop? Mine has been bouncing. It's been making content for props extremely annoying. So like I'll pull up the player and then I'll eventually bounce to a different screen. I don't know if that's been happening for you guys, but really since he has taken over for the RB1 spot, he has been someone that has been able to produce. We do worry about that game blowing out a little bit too fast. That is a worry for sure. At the same time, I really like the talent, and this just seems like such a low number for him. Now, if you guys are just like, no, the data is saying bet the under, I'm going to bet the under. You could do that. Does worry me a little bit. Mostly probably just staying away from that. This one from CMC is going to get bumped to 4. I still think at 4 that'd be a decent one, but the biggest worry that I have with that game in general, guys, is that it could eventually blow out and then we're just kind of SOL. We saw last week Christian McCaffrey's production kind of fell off because of that. Taysom Hill rushing yards. If Jawan Johnson was active in this game, I probably would like Taysom Hill a little bit less. We could bet the under here as well. About a 2-yard difference between what the sportsbook think. Underdog has it pretty high as well, and the projection data has it pretty low. So a decent one there. But another one that I really don't want to touch. Now, this is the first one that I find very fascinating as it sits right now. And I don't like that it's another tight end prop, because if you guys watched the preview deep dive video, I mentioned like 3 really good tight end props that I liked, and hopefully you guys got on those. This is another decent one. And the main reason being is that this game is expected to stay close. So the Patriots should be able to run out their 12 personnel a little bit more frequently. And I want to point out as well that the Patriots are going to be without their 2 slot receivers and Juju Smith and also Demario Douglas, which does mean like Rager is probably going to be the slot guy there, which is kind of crazy good for him. But I think that might lead to just Gesicki getting even a little bit more work. Now, I bring up the whole game staying close because Gesicki had seen his snaps kind of fall off, even though they were playing from behind. And that just pretty much tells me that he is their tight end that they're going to play with Hunter Henry in close games in that 12 personnel to, try to establish the run. So as long as he is playing enough snaps, that is a over bet that I do like. It's a very low number for him. And even on limited snaps, he almost got the overs there. And we can see in games where it was pretty close and he did get the over. So I do like the option of getting him over 17.5 receiving yards. That's going to be one that I'm going to write down. Not a lock and load, but I feel decent about it. Yeah, Brock Purdy not touching that one as well. This one I find fascinating for Joshua Dobbs for over 15 for a fantasy score. That game could be kind of a sneaky shootout. And we can see, yes, the Cardinals are almost 7-point dogs in this game. And last week, we did finally see like Dobbs not look as good as an NFL quarterback. It kind of felt like he got found out. Now, the Bengals are a good defense for the most part. He still was able to, score 2 touchdowns in that game. Just too many turnovers in that one. Maybe a little bit close scoring game. I don't know. I'd rather just, if there was a correlated bet that we found, and we wanted to use that, then we could. But for the most part, I just want to stay away from that one. Durham Smythe, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to touch this one either. Another tight end prop. We can see, though, pretty big edge that we're getting there. 3-yard difference between Underdog and PrizePicks. That's one you could roll with. I don't like that that's popping up. Nelson Aguilar. Now this one's interesting. I need to go take a peek at his snaps. And I say that, guys, because he is someone that like really kept popping on film for the Ravens. And I just need to see his snap counts. So it was down a little bit to about 58% last week. OBJ played in 52%. You probably expect that number to go up a little bit there for OBJ. Bateman, who knows? He's been terrible. So if we can get at least almost 60% of the snaps there from Aguilar, I think that'll be a prop that I like 63, 39, 4 against Cleveland. That was an ugly game. And then 64 last week going against Tennessee, which is a defense that you can beat via the air. I like that. And like I said, like it really goes Andrews, Zay Flowers, and then honestly, Aguilar has been the one that's looked pretty good. Now I know OBJ has been banged up and Bateman's not that big of competition, but that's another sneaky one. And it's a low yards total. Even if he plays 50% of the snaps, you could easily get that on just one reception. So yeah, I might go in on that one. Then from there, Kyle Pitts, if you want to roll with, you could. These two are going to be interesting, I think. We got Drake London and KJ Osborne for over fantasy score. Let's take a peek at these two. So for Drake London, we know he's going to be on the field a lot. That one, that's something we know for sure. We did see Desmond Ridder really have his best NFL game as a quarterback, and it was really shocking. Like against Green Bay, Ridder's performance kind of felt fluky, where against Houston, it was less fluky. Yeah, like he looked good, which I don't think I've been able to say that any other week. Now you look at Washington, what are they going to look like defensively? Because they gave up a lot of easy throws to Justin Fields last week. Now it was a short week, and I kind of gave them a slight pass there, but let's just say that does carry over, and they are still poor defensively. Someone like Drake London, if he's going to be getting at least 6 targets, that's going to be appealing. And given the way that this fantasy score is set, we're not seeing it really being valued with a touchdown at all. Okay, we're seeing, let's say 4 receptions and about 55 yards. Like that is definitely doable, especially if that Washington defense is going to be as poor as it was. And maybe we get lucky with the touchdown. Like I kind of like that one. Then the next one, we got KJ Osborne. It's going to be the exact same situation, but KJ Osborne definitely gets a better matchup here. He's going to get targeted heavily. We know that. It's just whether or not he can pull in the catches. He's kind of had a rough year. He's went under the expectations. I thought he would be a solid contributor, and he has, but he's definitely been more of a disappointment to me. Now, obviously with Justin Jefferson out, we expect those 2 receiver sets between KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison, and we'll see. Kirk Cousins could just force feed the football to TJ Hawkinson, but on paper, those are going to be 2 good bets that we have, Drake London and KJ Osborne. Now, this is also one that I kind of like actually as well. Laporta for under 11.5. Okay. He has been someone that has been impressive, but man, he is due for some touchdown regression. Anyone that follows fantasy football in any capacity knows that is coming. Okay. And he is currently listed as questionable, so maybe he plays limited snaps as well. But guys, if he still gets 4, 5, 6, 5 targets, it's tough for me to see him getting the over there, especially when we go ahead and look at DVP. He gets one of the more difficult matchups on the slate going against the Bucs. That to me does seem like a pretty solid prop there. And we can see PrizePicks a little bit more aggressive. Now, not a huge edge, but overall a good prop bet there. Let's continue on. Ahmed. This one's fascinating as well because we did see Chris Brooks, who really stood out, I thought, preseason and even last week in the Denver game, he stood out as well. Like every chance Chris Brooks has gone, he's looked really good. Now that is not really a hot take at all because every single Miami Dolphins running back has looked good thus far this season. And so the question is, which running back is going to be the RB2? Is it going to be Chris Brooks? And he could be the RB2, guys. And it's just tough to wrap my head around like what's going to happen with this Miami offense because they had Achane, Mostert, and Brooks on the field at the same time. Like, I think it was like a couple of plays where Brooks was just being used as a blocker, but that's just another wrinkle that they could add in there where Brooks maybe motions into the backfield, gets a handoff and rips off some chunk plays. Maybe Ahmed is actually the default RB1 and, Mostert ends up doing a lot of the unique stuff in the offense. So it's tough to gauge really what we should be doing there. Probably just staying away, but I would say, yeah, I'd probably favor the under there. Here's a really good EV bet, guys. If you can, Dallas got it for over 3.5 receptions. He gets an actual really good matchup there going against the Jets. Now, the Jets haven't exactly given up a ton of receptions, but they have given up a bunch of production to opposing tight ends. Dallas Goedert is coming in off of his best game of the season, and he is someone that does get targeted heavily, especially in good matchups. So I do expect him to be able to get over 3.5 receptions. My worry is that prop is going to be bumped by the time you guys get there. Another interesting one would be Michael Pittman Jr. for over 5.5 reception. You had the Gardner Minshew revenge game, but you also have Michael Pittman that he's probably just going to get targeted heavily in this game. The Colts, we never know which Trevor Lawrence we're going to get. The assumption, and we'll pull up the sportsbook here. The assumption is that Jaguars will probably be playing with the lead, 4-point spread. So maybe not exactly. It is not as high scoring as I would have thought as well. But all in all, I bet most bets are on Jacksonville covering that. But like I said, it kind of just depends on which Trevor Lawrence we get. That being said, we have seen Michael Pittman get targeted heavily. And, I would say with Anthony Richardson out, I kind of expect them to be throwing the football a little bit more. Now, JT is expected to get more of a workload, and maybe they just hammer the football with both JT and Zach Moss. But at the same time, if we can get potentially double-digit targets here, I do agree that that's a decent prop, and I would say yes, like basically a 55% chance. I would say, yeah, I agree with that. Another kind of interesting one here, Michael Carter for over 8.5 receiving yards. I do want to go into the sportsbook view here again. They are almost 7-point dogs, 6.5-point dogs. Over and under for that game is set at 42.5. Now, I bring that up because we have seen Michael Carter consistently get about 30% of the snaps. So that is something that's probably not going to change. And we've seen Dalvin Cook really seen the snaps decrease each and every week. Now, let's say they are playing from behind. Carter is going to be much more of the passing down back. And so maybe we just see a couple more dump offs funneled his way. And to me, it wouldn't be shocking to see him get over that. We have seen him get that over receiving yards 3 out of 5 games as well. So that's when I can get behind. And we can see the average sportsbook line actually has it set at 9.5 instead of 8.5. A slight edge there for someone like him where he could just catch a dump off. Maybe it's like 3rd and 20. He gets us 10 yards, gets the over. I like that one. This one's also interesting. So Deonta Foreman, they're probably going to have Travis Homer be their 3rd down running back. At the same time, we have seen the screen game be a big part in this offense. Maybe we see DJ Moore actually work out of the backfield a little bit there as well. But I would kind of agree with the over here as well. Not as big of an edge, not one that I really love, but could see that happening. Another interesting one here as well. Gus Cat. There's a lot of interesting props. Let's just put it that way. I feel like we don't have locks, but interesting thought process here. Gus Edwards. We can see the average sportsbook line would have his line set at 7.4. There is no touchdown equity being baked in here at 6.5. And actually Justice Hill has kind of led the way in that department. But we have news that Keenan Mitchell is going to be active in this game. Justice Hill has been someone that's been looking good. So this is very much a touchdown dependent prop, I would say. And I probably just don't want to touch that, but he hasn't been bad film wise. So I don't know. That's up to you guys if you guys want to roll with that one or not. Let's continue on. And now we're going to see like Dallas Goedert. We're going to see receiving yards. We already saw the receptions there. So it's no surprise that his fantasy score is also going to be one where we are seeing the over being favorited. If you guys like one of those over the 3.5 receptions, by all means, roll with it. They all kind of correlate together. Gardner Minshew, revenge game narrative. Can he get over 14 fantasy score? That's for you guys to decide. So Devonta Smith, this was one that I kind of called out at the start of the week, is that I thought that his prop line was just too low. And so Vegas has kind of agreed with that. They have bumped it up. PrizePicks will probably do that as well. So this might be not worthwhile to even mention it because I imagine it will get bumped. Hopefully you guys were able to take advantage of that at the start of the week. But pretty much, I don't think there should ever be a big difference between him and AJ Brown unless there's an injury in terms of receiving yards, in terms of really everything. So seems like a pretty good bet there if it stays. And now we're going to get into some more pretty good bets. We got Garrett Wilson for over 4.5 receiving yards. I feel like they're going to watch that film back and be like, yeah, we messed up. We should have designed some plays to, one, get Zach Wilson going early in that game, but also get Garrett Wilson going on early in that game. They didn't. It was they fell back into themselves from the first like 3 weeks, where it's just, to me, I thought it was a bad game plan. Nathaniel Hackett game, he got lucky, I would say, more so than he won that game. We got Riandre Stevenson for over 2.5 receptions. Another one that probably seems right, but a pretty good EV bet there. Once again, that game's supposed to be closer, so hopefully there's more sustained drives for them, and obviously then that's going to help his likelihood to be able to get over 2.5. Now Ryan Tannehill, this one's kind of interesting as well. So the average Vegas line would actually have it set at 15.4. The projection data doesn't like it as much. Underdog has it set at 14. I do agree that it probably should be at 14. 13 seems to be way too low for him. Not way too low, but a little bit too low, I should say. And it just comes down to really what Baltimore Ravens team we get, because they dominated last week, guys. It was probably the biggest spread in terms of expected points versus like a team that lost maybe ever. It was crazy that the Steelers won that game, but also kept it close. It bounced again. I don't get what's going on there. But Tannehill is someone that, has been I don't want to say impressive, but after his terrible first week, he has looked better the last few. And as long as Baltimore cannot be terrible, I do expect that Tannehill could be able to get that over. But if you're doing that as well, DeAndre Hopkins I like as well. Now, at the start of the week, you could have got him at 4.5 receptions. This is now set at 5. I would say this number is probably right. I don't think I want to touch the fantasy score prop though, so it's tough to stack those two. Then we're starting to get into some tighter props. We got Evan Ingram as a good EV prop, and then all these other ones are just starting to get pretty tight. So I don't know if we need to really be touching on any of these ones too much. So let's go ahead and get into my favorite bets for week. All right, so as you guys know, with my bet of the day, I typically like to give lines I don't think are going to change too much from the time I upload to the time most of you guys get a chance to watch this. But by all means, if any of those EV bets are still out there, Dallas Goedert over 3.5 receptions, CMC over 3.5 receptions, Garrett Wilson over 4.5 receptions, like bets like that I mentioned in this video, by all means go ahead and make those. The reason I like to go with props like these is we have an edge and they most likely will not get bumped. Now, the strategy is typically take the EV bets and run with them. Like that's what we want to do. But a nice thing that we see is that we typically don't see the fantasy score props get bumped. So hopefully that is the case again this week. Now, I do just want to show this slip as well, because these were some bets that I was kind of hoping that the data would agree with as well. Mostert, I think, is going to have a really good game against Carolina. This does feel a little bit too much touchdown dependent though. We'll see, but I think he does have a good chance to score. Tyler Conklin, I do like. Zach Wilson loves him. Gets a good matchup going against Philly. Brian Robinson Jr. for over 1.5 receptions. I do think we're going to continue to see him be involved with the passing game. And then Kendrick Bourne as well. They're going to need him to be involved in the passing game just with how banged up they are at the receiver position. And he's really like the only player on offense that's been impressive, minus Henry, a little bit of Gesicki, and also Zeke. So I don't mind that one as well. But it's not the official bet of the day or anything like that. The first one's going to be that. That's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, make sure to give a like and subscribe. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing. That's all.